The Hangout on Air is live. What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Jeremy here of the Weekly Pop and Movies Are Terrible on YouTube. Joined today with a special guest. It is Chad Peterson, also known as Chad VO on Instagram. Is that correct?
Chad Joe VO.
Fantastic. And actually, we talked for a minute before we went live, and that's where I discovered you, and I was kind of delving into different voice actors and things like that. I came across your page, and I'm a big fan of what you do.
Well,
Again,
thank you.
yeah, absolutely. And so I kind of want to get a little bit insight talking about voice coaching and voice acting. It's all on you now, man.
Insight. So, do you want me to start from the beginning, or do you want to just kind of talk about where I'm at now and where I'm trying to go?
Yeah, all of that. So
All of
let's
that.
what made you decide to pursue something like this? Did you kind of fall into it, or is it something that you've aspired for?
This is something I've wanted for ever since I was a kid. Cliche as all get out, but I was the kid who watched commercials, who would turn the music down on the radio and up during the commercials. My dad would yell at me like, "The commercials, turn them off." But I
Do it
loved it.
backwards. Yeah.
Yeah, I loved hearing voices. I loved the delivery, cartoons, obviously growing up, Looney Tunes and such. You get so, I was a very imaginative kid, and I wanted to be part of that world, if you will, to take
Sure.
it from Little Mermaid, part of that world. Anyway, um, so when I got into high school and you do the job shadow thing, I went to the radio station, and I was like, yeah, I want to be here. And they're like, great. It's really hard to be a vocal person these days. So you should look at marketing instead. And I went, okay. And I hung out with the marketing crew for a while at the radio station in high school. Got out of college. I interned for a radio station up in Duluth, Minnesota. And didn't get into the booth per se to talk, but I used to sneak in all the time to try and like listen and be a part of that because I was there to be a marketer. That's what I thought I could make it in. Anyway, as I got going, I got the classic, oh, you've got a good voice. Maybe you should use it to make money or something. And it's like, yeah, I think that's a dead dream, like being a rock star. Maybe I can't do that anymore. Then finally, as I got onto YouTube and Instagram and started seeing people like the epic voice guy, like we were talking about earlier, and it's just like, well, they're just hanging out, playing around. Why can't I do that? And so that's what I started doing is like, well, let's just go on Instagram, talk, and see what happens. And through that, I started networking, met people like you. And here we are today. I've now determined that I'm having a lot of fun with this. And I hate working for a company or other people. So it's time to try and figure out how to make this happen at home. That's what I'm going to do.
Well, and it's a beautiful thing that we have the access to the technology to be able to do it at home, and it's not editing
Mm-hmm.
hours of tape together. It's all digital and shit now, and that really does it gives us access to cast a wide net. Granted, as somebody who was in marketing, you're very well that there's what, a million people out there who want their 15 minutes, and every
Exactly.
YouTube channel, whether it be for movie reviewing or voice acting or so many things. And sometimes it's easy to get lost in the noise, but the fact that you are putting yourself out there, I mean, the opportunities are there. And as
Mm-hmm.
somebody who was in marketing, you probably see a lot of crossover between those two industries, I'd imagine.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's, I know coaching is on the docket as well. You talk to a lot of coaches who try to wrap you in, draw you in, and they always talk about you got to have that demo. You got to be coached well, and you got to have that demo. And I absolutely agree. However, there are plenty of voiceover actors who have made it big or have made a living without a demo simply because they know how to market themselves. They at least know how to make sure that their voice is heard in some way by the receiving end, even if it's not that finished product. And so I've been that's kind of where I'm at is, oh, how do I meld the two? I don't necessarily have a very expensive demo to work with, but I know how to market myself other ways. So yeah, marketing has become a huge part of how I'm approaching things. I mean, you look at people like Earl Hall, he's big on Instagram and YouTube and everything. Dude puts out like a daily webinar. All he talks about is marketing because You know, if you've got the voice and it's natural to you to just talk, you'll find a niche and you'll find a way to market to it.
Absolutely. So real quick for the folks at home, what would you say is the difference between voiceover and voice acting?
Not a heck of a lot, I guess. I know people look at it as voice acting must be like animation, cartoon, and stuff you would imagine actors doing. Chris Pratt gets hired to be in the Lego movie. That's voice acting. Well, if he wanted to do a commercial, that's still voice acting, and it's not necessarily voice over. And voice over is what the technical term essentially for a vocal track over something. So,
Sure. Sure,
yeah,
yeah.
to me, it's no different. Acting over. It's all about just having fun and making it come to life.
Yeah, man, I think you really hit it on the head. It does almost get to where it's splitting hairs, but I think that
Hmm.
like voiceover would probably apply to more like reading audiobooks, doing technical
Yeah.
webinar kind of, well, what you would just now mention. So, but at the same time, getting a little more existential, it's hard to be 100% natural in front of a microphone, like I had mentioned to you. So there's always going to be an element of acting in it, right?
Well, absolutely. And I mean, as golden as the casual read is today, you still have to have knowledge of pacing, delivery, all that stuff. And that's not natural. I mean, you don't naturally talk that way to your friends, so it's still acting.
So, you mentioned the Honest Trailer guy. I wish I could think of his name right now. It's John something.
John something, yeah, I know. I'm struggling with it too.
Oh, John Bailey. Boom. There,
Oh yeah, okay.
should have known. So, what are some of your influences? Like, who were some of those voices growing up that you're like, that's the guy?
Sure. Um, so for me, it wouldn't be people that are well known, but it's the local disc jockeys, the local radio guys. To me, it was like, oh yeah, I like the promo voice. I like the guy who can be up here and all excited and drop it down low and have fun with it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And when I worked at the radio station as an intern, there's a guy named Scott Savage with 94X. And Scott used to walk around the office and he would just do stuff like this and talk and blah, blah, blah. And he would just be practicing for fun. And I think that was the real shift for me where it was like, yeah, I want to be like that guy on a daily basis. But years pass and we get to a point now where I'm older and I look at everything from the actors like Nolan North and Troy Baker, who are big in video games.
Uh-huh.
They were big influences once they got in the social media game and I got to see them. And the more I dive in,
Quick, right?
what's that?
That's the guy that plays Nathan Drake.
Yes, that's Nolan North.
Nolan North. Okay. And then who was the other guy you mentioned?
Troy Baker, he's so like the Mordor game.
Yeah.
He plays the lead character in that. He was the lead, and my God, am I struggling with game titles right now? Oh, he's been in so many games. He's awesome.
Just for a reference for the people who may not know and may be curious. Yeah, Nolan North actually did an interview with ETC about a year ago. So I highly recommend you guys that are interested in voice acting going over and checking that out.
He's a hell of a Christopher Walken impersonator too.
Oh yeah, man, everybody's got a Walken.
I do not have a Walken. I don't know. I don't even get near that. That's crazy.
Any impressions? Is that something in your repertoire?
I'm not a huge impressionist. I do get but I'm a big fan of drawing from villains. I love doing villain type voices. The Joker, everyone's got a Joker, so I mean that was one I try. But yeah, that may be as close to an impression as I get. My own version of the Joker.
Those alphabet raps that so many like voice talents do on YouTube.
Do I like them?
Have you seen them?
Oh yeah. I've seen them. Yeah.
Dope. I get a kick out of watching those, but it is a very specific thing. First of all, you got to be able to sing, and that is yeah. I don't know about if I can actually sing very well, but yeah,
right.
They're very, very technically well done, and to be able to transition almost from bar to bar into these totally different registers and totally different voices is really impressive.
It's mind blowing. I don't know how people do it. I'm sure I grew up talking in those types of voices or trying to all the time, but I guess it's just not my niche.
Sure. You have a cartoon voiceover person or somebody that has made it in that industry that you kind of look up to, especially looking back now?
Looking back now, it's definitely and I had the pleasure of meeting him, Kevin Conroy,
Oh yeah.
Batman.
Hmm.
Yeah, and of course Mark Hamill, because I'm a huge geek, and so I watched a lot of the geeky stuff, and those are the two most prominent ones, I think. Um, and also because there's a lot of material that in interviews of them where they talk about being the character. So when you pair those two, it's easy to be drawn to them. Otherwise, is John DiMaggio,
Hmm.
the voice of Bender and a bunch of other characters. Yeah, yep.
Yeah, absolutely. He's a good one. And then fucking John Benjamin has made a career out of just being John Benjamin, and so distinct, and he's in everything, you know?
I wouldn't that be something like you're just everyone loves your voice and yeah, just be in every cartoon and use the same voice.
Yeah,
Don't change it.
anything. Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
God, what a thing to fall into.
I love Archer, and there was an episode where there's a Bob's Burgers crossover with it. It is
Yep.
fantastic.
Yeah, and that's how I got into Bob's Burgers was through Archer. It was like, oh, really? This is the same spin-off show and same voice? Yeah.
No doubt, no doubt. And then there was the old one, Home Movies, where he plays a character named Coach McGurk. It is
Oh yeah. Jeez,
it's
that's an old one.
yeah, yeah, for sure. And he was really good in that. And then Wet Hot American Summer, he's like a fucking can of beans or something.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and it's so mind blowing because that's a like in that show before he's the can of beans, he's himself, right? So you get to see him, and you're like, wow, he's not like sexy and dapper like Archer is at all, like you would imagine him to be, right?
Absolutely. And actually, that segues really well into something that we kind of touched on, and that's the difference between your voice persona and the way you're perceived in the outside world. We all have a specific picture of what, just for example, Lex and Terry look like, and then you see them. Do you think that just as a viewer or as somebody who listens, that hard to to reconcile the two, not separate, but to say, okay, I know you, Chad, and we're friends. We've hung out a million times, and then I hear you do that voice. Is it always going to be ring false to me?
Yeah, I think that'll happen to a lot of people, especially if you're not in the industry and you're doing it all the time and you just come to expect that of people. Yeah, it's like, oh my God, why are you're so different? Like, why? And well, that's the acting, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So you mentioned that your wife might have even been like, "Why don't you talk in your regular voice?" Why do you think that is? Like, just to answer her question, why do you think that is that you don't talk in your regular voice when you're doing recordings?
So for me, I find a niche of mine is narration, and I go back to I watched a lot of Animal Planet type shows growing up. And so, like, especially if you go back to Marty Stouffer, even though he wasn't a great voice actor, he just had a way of delivery, being Marty Stouffer out in the woods. And it's this low, slow, drawn out thing. And you watch now like Planet Earth or whatever, and those voiceovers, they're these low, inviting, welcoming type. And that's not me. I'm up here and I'm very high pitched and I like to be real fast and energetic. And so when I look at my niche, I'm like, that voice does not work. I have to do something better. So yeah, I try to go for these lower registers that are not natural to me half the time. And my wife goes, well, why don't you just use your normal voice? It'll work, trust me.
Dude, I really do. I immediately responded to your delivery, and I think it probably comes from similar influences and things like that, and this this perception of what is correct,
Yeah.
even in some ways. So when I heard your voice, it has that very classic, like that's what I think voiceover artists try to aspire to. And if you can give it to me in layman's terms, how do you transition your register from where it's natural to that lower place?
Focus. It's just getting in, and it took a long time to figure this out, but essentially just centering yourself, getting ready to like, all right, this is what I'm gonna do, and this is what I want to hear come out the other end. So just like you would try to develop in an impersonation or impression, it's the same thing. Just trying to know what the end game is and trying to deliver it that way.
So is there a closeness to the microphone?
Yeah, definitely, especially with my hodgepodge of a studio. There's still some reflection issues that I work on, that I'm constantly working on, and to play closer to the mic gets rid of things like that and it plays up my voice better. So, yep, get nice and close and warm.
Do you think that the general public misunderstands what projecting means or talking from your diaphragm?
Oh, absolutely, because everyone thinks projecting means you gotta be nice and loud, and they'll
Right.
try and do it when they're on top of the microphone or whatever, when really it's just breath control. I mean, you can be nice and loud without cranking up the volume.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's something that I definitely ran into in the beginning. I think trying to overcompensate, and I'd have coworkers like most everybody at the office that I work at are what's called account managers. They're the people
Hmm.
schedule ads to run in each respective store. I'm not the most organized person. I'm more on the creative side of the spectrum. So I write the ad copy and I do the actual ad reads. And I remember one of my first couple of days working, one of the account managers just being like, "Well, I've never heard anybody yell in the booth before." And I'm like, "Yeah, I might need to fix that."
Yeah, and it can be a hard thing to fix if I think, if you're a singer or if you know how to sing or something like that. That's a great start because you already are halfway there to the diaphragm control. Now it's just understanding that you're not singing, you're just still talking.
So, do you sing?
I try. Yeah, I grew up musically. My dad is hardcore into rock and roll, and so that's how me and my brother grew up. I actually went to school to be a music teacher for a while, and diverted back into the marketing and business sides of things. Um, but yeah, music runs hard and deep in the family.
Play guitar?
Yeah, play a little guitar, play clarinet, um, can kind of play drums, but
Yeah, right. I could 4/4 all right, or a little bit of cut time, but
yeah.
I did so my fills suck. Like I always end up on the wrong hand because
Oh man.
just the
It,
whole I would have to reconfigure the set to fix that.
yeah, exactly. Or just somehow get more coordination. I don't know how some drummers do it. Like, especially if you're into metal and you watch some of these guys, their feet are moving 9,000 miles an hour, yet they still have the coordination to keep some sort of rhythm on a hi hat and a snare, and yeah, that blows my mind.
Double bass. It's got to be such good cardio to just like play an hour of like Slipknot or
Yeah,
like that. They are intense for sure, and that's I think metal gets a pretty bad rap as far as music goes. Wow, we've totally diverted, but yeah, I
yeah,
think that
it happens.
absolutely. And the best conversations start out in a totally different place. But yeah,
Exactly.
I do. I feel like metal musicians get a bad name because so much of their stuff's in like drop D or
Sure.
drop A or something like that. And there's a lot of open 2/3, just real simple chords. But it's like it's an endurance test, and there's something to be said about that.
Absolutely. And it's extremely technical. So, I mean, you have to have your timing, your ear, and it all has to be so perfect. And there are some
Yeah.
amazing solos that come out of metal. I mean,
God, dude, like
some dudes
Dragon,
can shred. Ah, my God, those dudes are phenomenal.
unbelievable, unbelievable. All right, I guess we'll venture back into what we were talking about. So you said you were a fan of kind of I hate to use the term geek and nerd, but
That's
that's what we have to work with.
what
So
we'll roll with.
yeah, and I'm not gonna say I was ever like ashamed to be a nerd. I think because I was kind of social and outgoing, it was all right for me to like wear jaw shirts and things like that. But I have heard, a lot of people had a tough time growing up and being accepted in social circles and stuff because of it. But now it's become so what I consider pop culture and so main
Hmm.
that the tides have totally turned. But you like the Batman animated series, and that is probably one of my favorite cartoons of all time. But what you don't have to name or commit to your favorite movie, but what are some of your favorite movies?
Some of my favorite movies. Oh, man. Well, I'm a big action guy, just naturally. Um, and so and I like it when action and comedy are combined very well. So in terms of like going back a little bit, something like Princess Bride, it's
Great.
it's got a lot of action in it when you think about it, and it's funnier than hell. Um, So I like things on that scale, but I also like when you get into it hardcore, like the original Batman movie.
Hmm.
You get into Bale's Batman, which was pretty freaking badass.
Yeah,
Um, the original Spider-Man series, just movies 1 and 2.
the Raimi ones. Yeah,
We'll forget about number 3. That was stupid.
number three. I don't remember that.
I think a lot of us try to forget that one. I think Mr. Maguire tries his best to forget that one. Those are definitely like where I like to live. I like movies that are cliche in a sense, and I like or like Wesley Snipes movies.
Yeah.
Like real B type movies where it's like this is dumb, but something about it is so damn good.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I like.
Old Jean-Claude Van Damme
Oh
movie.
man, those are the best.
Yeah. Maybe that's subjective.
Yeah, that very.
Yeah, great choices. I remember seeing Spider-Man in the movie theater for the first time, and I think that I probably had a similar feeling to the way that people felt back in '78 when they saw Donner's Superman. It's like
Yeah.
seeing Spider-Man swing from building to building, and just the way that Elfman composed the score, and so many elements were just firing on all cylinders in that.
Hmm.
And I remember responding to it really, not, I don't want to say emotionally, but like it affected me in a way that few movies have, similar to maybe Jurassic Park in the theater. In my
Ooh, yeah. Big
yeah.
Jurassic Park fan.
So what about Jurassic World?
We live in such a time of just capitalizing on people's past emotions and nostalgia and crap, and there are movies where you can just tell they're trying that very hard, and I think Jurassic World was one of them. The running from the T-Rex in the high heels. Come on, like who did not think these things through? Like, right? It's just all about selling something. I think Chris Pratt is a great actor. Did I like him in Jurassic World? I really didn't. I think it would have been more fun to go with someone who was lesser known, because you sometimes when you get to a level that he's at, you're just going from movie to movie to movie to movie that you wonder, are they trying? Do they realize which movie they're in?
Yeah.
Like I feel like this is still Star-Lord that I'm watching here. And so, yeah, Jurassic World it's kind of thrown me for a loop, and any other movie that's trying to take on that nostalgia thing. The Ninja Turtle movies, I mean, come on,
Mm,
they were not that good. The new ones.
not at all. And that's a whole different can of worms. But I do find that so interesting that like we can't help but be manipulated by porn, but then it
Hmm.
ends up being a kind of hollow experience when it's all said and done, right? It's like you
Exactly.
candy or something like that. You love it while you're doing it, and then you feel bad afterwards, kind of.
Exactly. And what I think, and this is a big one because this happened at work. We were talking about this when it comes to the new Star Wars, is in the world of too many trailers and forums, and where people can just communicate a little too much about what they don't know and
Yeah.
what they think or what they believe from the past things they saw 40 years ago. Um, like I'm talking to some of these really big Star Wars fans, and they're just like you said, the hollow shell. They're like, well, it didn't live up to all the hype we had built up for ourselves in the forums and everything. And
Yeah.
it just is like you feel so robbed because you're waiting for this nostalgia, this feeling you had when you were 10 years old. It didn't happen again. Well, that's what happens when you're 30, 40 years older, and
Old man. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, and people are trying to sell you something based on that feeling that you had when you were 10.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's funny. I think every single Star Wars fan had written out some fucking crazy fan fiction in their head about what
Yep.
the Star Wars movie was going to be. They literally have to make a million different The Last Jedi's to make the movie that each of these different people want. And it's like you got to just trust the filmmakers at some point, trust the screenwriters, and know that
Hmm.
they most likely got into the position that they're in because they've got talent, which is more than a lot of these people criticizing have, you know?
Exactly. Yeah, we're all armchair quarterbacks, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So describe The Last Jedi in 3 adjectives.
Well, I haven't seen it yet.
All right, fair
There
enough.
we go. So I don't want to prejudge something I haven't seen yet, but maybe blown out of proportion. Make out of one word.
Yeah, I honestly, I really enjoyed it. I can see people's criticisms because they felt almost betrayed by the portrayal of the characters, but I think it was that subversion that excited me. It's like, oh shit, I thought it was gonna veer right and it took a hard left, and that is exciting to me to not know where this trilogy is going, especially after The Force Awakens, which was so similar to A New Hope.
Oh,
So, you know,
very much so. Well, good. That excites me to go see Last Jedi then.
yeah, highly recommend it. Highly recommend it. All right, let's go ahead and get into 10 questions.
Oh
Just
boy.
brief answers, no incorrect answers, just answers that the public will judge you for after you.
So Tim Ferriss rapid fire style. I like it.
Absolutely. Okay, so let's start with it's early in 2018. What was your resolution for the new year?
Resolutions. Really, it's just to make a goal and attack this voiceover thing more heading into 2018. Marketing, selling myself, and just practicing the craft and staying on top of it and being very consistent.
I decided my resolution this year is to stop fucking with people who ask me about New Year's resolutions. Like, guys, I don't have space for you in my life. No, I same deal. Kind of the same deal. It's just like actively pursue it. Stay on top of it. Don't get stagnant or let laziness or just, this stagnation of working this 9 to 5 every day and then coming home after I've done so much audio editing and then still having the excitement to do the editing when I get it home. And that's something that I've noticed is I didn't start out working at this job. I actually got the job as a result of the production stuff that I had done.
Nice.
Well, yeah, absolutely. And it goes back to what you said about putting yourself out there. You just cast as wide a net as possible and speak highly of yourself, kind of back to the marketing and the sales pitch thing. When people ask you what you can do, you tell them what you can do,
Exactly. Got to have the belief, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Regardless if it's informed or realistic. So who would you want to play you in your biopic?
Want to play me in my biopic? Well, I could say my brother, because we're identical, and I think he would take a great portrayal of me. I'm up here, energetic, highly, outgoing a lot of times. He's more like, hey, what's up? How's it going? I would really like to see that version of myself in a biopic. I think that'd be fun.
Is he your twin?
No, he's 3 years younger than me, but everyone calls us twins. It's stupid how identical we are.
That's crazy. A brother who's 2 years younger than me, and we could not be more different.
Sure.
I guess we look siblings, but our personalities and everything are just so yin and yang. So
yep.
I would consider myself the yin, but I can't really be objective about it. Okay, what superhero would suck the worst to have as company? Like, who would be the lamest superhero to hang out with?
The lamest superhero to hang out with? Well, we got that Divvy guy in the new Flash show, who just really, he stretches. He's like, it's all he does.
Yeah.
And he's kind of an ass. I don't think I would enjoy hanging out with that man very much.
Superpower, especially on film, just the lamest superpower.
It so is. But in terms of like big, awesome superhero that would be too lame to hang out with. Damn, that's a good question. I'm gonna stick with Dibby.
I think Superman would kind of just like make me feel bad about myself.
Oh yeah, that's a good call. Yeah.
Like, you can't live up to that.
Not at all.
Fucking Boy Scout, dude.
He's the best. He's number one. He's everyone's favorite. Everyone's God, the way that Snyder portrays him.
Oh, again, whole nother conversation. What's a trend right now that in 5 years we're all going to be ashamed of?
Oh man, fidget spinners.
Right?
I think with social media, because that's what I do in marketing. I'm a social media manager, and I think we are all going to start to look back on our behavior on social media and kind of be like, maybe it's not good to be a keyboard warrior or to just throw stuff out there and whatever. We've created two selves, if you will, our human self and then our self online. We don't make a different persona. It's the same person. We just act really differently. And I think we're going to start looking back the more like, how Facebook shares your memory with you. And you're like, wow, I was an ass 5 years ago or something like that. I think that's something we're all really going to start to regret in terms of the trend of just throwing yourself out there without thinking.
You think more in the terms of oversharing or being insensitive?
Both, actually, because I mean, you got, and I'm looking at an older crowd now, I guess, based on my experiences, but oversharing, you get you share the dumbest things, like these memes, like, Aunt Jemima's got 9,000 of the Minion memes, and it's like, well, why'd you do that? And now this is all we see when we look at your feed. So there, you got that, and then you got the other people who are attacking people for no reason, or someone gives an opinion, or even just as a YouTuber, this, you post something and you got that one person who just wants to jump on and say his 2 cents that's mean for no freaking reason. Really? Like, unless you want to be known as that person the rest of your life, I think that's really going to start biting some people in the ass, especially if they're in high school now and they get into college and there's some way for the colleges and businesses to search you and see you in comments and go, oh, you suck. Like,
yeah. That's a good point. I agree with that. So back to a movie that you saw that just had a scene in it or a moment, or maybe just the whole movie that scarred you, that disturbed you to your core.
Ooh, so this probably isn't the biggest one, but a movie that I haven't watched since the first time, I Am Legend. Mm-hmm. When he kills the dog. I'm such a big dog guy. And so whenever, like, Homeward Bound, like, I don't think I watched much after the first sad scene with Shadow, and then I came back, I'm like, oh no, Shadow's okay. Or Air Bud, like, oh, Air Bud goes, oh no, Air Bud's back, now he's okay. Like, it took me a while to understand, like, this is okay. But when he kills that dog in I Am Legend, I just, like, shook my head and went, I'm never watching this movie again, because I can't make it past this scene. I can't do it.
So you'd go John Wick if somebody killed your dog?
Oh my God. Absolutely. Yes. No one could stop me. I would just turn into an animal.
No doubt. Yeah, I love my dog. It's crazy. I have a chocolate lab named Rocky. We got him on Halloween, and we didn't want to go with the cliche like Freddy or...
Oh, sure, yeah.
The dog names anyway. So we went with Rocky from the Rocky Horror Picture Show. But this dog, he was raised maybe too well. Like, maybe my wife spoiled him too much, because he is a jerk, dude. Like, we put him on a leash and he wants to, like, lunge at people when we pass by and Walken.
Yep.
The neighbor calls him Cujo, which is fucked up, man. They say there's no such thing as bad dogs, just bad dog owners. And I think that's such bullshit, because the things have brains. It's not like we program them, you know what I mean?
And there's genetics, so you don't know, like, where they came from. It just might be in them. And yeah, and dogs are interesting in the sense of, again, we're going on a little bit of a tidbit here, but like, the amount of training you have to put into it, we don't quite think about it the same way we might do to our kids, because it's like, well, this is a human being. If it dies, I'll go to jail. If a dog dies, I won't. Like, so maybe we don't put the training in sometimes to understand a dog in the same way we might try to understand a special needs child, right? Like, they can be similar to an extent, where it's just they're special and they have their own way of operating, and you've got to find a new way of connecting. Some dogs are like that. But there are some that are out there that are like, yeah, this is a total asshole breed. Like, why did we, or this guy comes from, he thinks he's all that because, like you said, he's spoiled. And yeah, I know those dogs.
Yeah, well, thanks for letting me off the hook there. I now feel justified. Couple more. Are aliens real?
Oh boy. Probably. I mean, there's nothing that says they aren't. And space is a big freaking place. So who's to say that there isn't something out there, whether it's as advanced as us, more advanced, or just an organism living on a rock like our planet used to be at one point, I imagine. But yeah, I imagine they probably are.
100% agreed. What about ghosts?
Ghost. Oh, that's getting something different, eh? Yeah, why not? I mean, I have a bit of a religious background growing up, and so I mean, I definitely have instilled in me the whole spirits, and like you do things in this life maybe for the next life if you believe in that. But I imagine that if you believe on that stuff a little bit, you believe in dimensional something a little bit too, and those things got to cross planes here and there because this is pretty big and we don't understand most of it, so yeah, why not?
Good answer. So last question. This is a good one. What would be a good alternative to war for nations to resolve conflicts?
Poker tournament.
Oh, like it.
What's that?
Not a boxing match.
Ooh, that could be fun too. Oh, maybe with Rock'em Sock'ems instead.
Yeah.
I liked what is it in Surrogates, the really bad Bruce Willis movie, Surrogates.
Didn't see it.
You didn't see it? Oh,
It's bad though.
well, in one they're trying to describe the idea of the surrogate, and the way that they fight war is you sit in a real human sits in a machine and controls a robot. And so there's this massive war going on, but the only people dying are robots. And when you die, you just jump in a new robot. So I thought that was kind of cool. Maybe we'll just make designated areas with robots and we'll just fight that way.
Yeah. So speaking of robots, will they literally inherit the earth from humans like we did from dinosaurs?
Isn't that scary to think about? I mean, and there's a lot of games coming out that are really touching this stuff, like that Detroit game, Becoming Human or whatever. Again, the culture I grew up with of nerd stuff, it's kind of hard to be like, well, the world we're seeing now really reflects back on stuff we saw in Terminator, 20, 30 years ago, where it was like, well, we were trying to develop an AI unit that automated everything and took care of things, and it went rogue. And we're developing that shit now. And so, one day Alexa might just spring forth and stab you. I don't know. But it is crazy to think about the more and more we create these robots and intelligences and start to put two and two together. One thing that really gets me is in VoiceOver, even these robots that you give a little bit of information to, and they can write a complete copy for you, or they'll use voice actuators and they'll develop a voice and they'll spit out the commercial.
Interesting.
That's crazy. Like, really? And I've read some of these emails and stuff in terms of copy, and it's really good. Like, it's better than some political officials put out there. Like, this is good copy. And so yeah, I don't know, it's already happening in a sense where our jobs could go away, so maybe our control.
Oh, that's what's crazy is like, I mean, it doesn't end there. It's like bank tellers, fast food workers, you name it, and these things could potentially put us out of jobs. About 6 months ago, maybe give or take a little bit, there was a first artificial intelligence to be granted a citizenship to Dubai or something.
Yeah.
Emirates or something like that. And that to me kind of feels like the catalyst to Skynet. Like, I don't know, maybe I'm overthinking this, but I do feel like they'll outlive us. So if we create a population of robots, perhaps ones that can create other robots, we're done. That's it.
Exactly. So hopefully we get a lot of benders who want to have fun and drink, and we don't get a lot of the robot Santa Claus who just wants to murder everybody from Futurama.
Or was it Kill All Humans? Yeah, Kill All Humans.
That's a good game. Kill All Humans. Yeah.
So, Chad, it's been fun, man.
Hell yeah.
A little bit.
Thanks for having me on, man. I've really enjoyed this. I hope maybe we'll get to have a hangout or something again.
Absolutely. Same here. So what's next for you, my friend?
What's next? It's just to keep pursuing this craft I call voiceover, and hopefully make it a career. My family and I, we moved into a new house here in Minnesota not too long ago. So it's just building life and connecting and networking and growing this business I want to start.
Fantastic. And then if the folks want to look you up, to find you on social media, where can we find you?
Sure. So my two biggest ones are Instagram and Twitter. It's Chad Joe, J-O _ VO on Instagram and on Twitter. On Facebook, you can find me at Chad Peterson VoiceOver Talent. for my page. And I also have a YouTube channel that isn't anything phenomenal, but if you want to check it out, it features some of the same things my Instagram does, just Chad Peterson.
Very cool, man. Thank you very much again, and we'll talk again in the future.
Sounds good, man. Thanks a lot.
And thank you guys for stopping by for yet another edition of the Weekly Pop Movie Podcast. I'm Jeremy. Be terrible.